Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon. This is Scale Your Sales podcast. Welcome to the Scale Your Sales podcast, listed number 9 of 42 best podcasts for every sales professional in 2021. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, recommended by LinkedIn as one of 15 innovative sales influencers to follow in 2021. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast, we talk about the recently published book, She Sells, and the campaign goes on to help companies to recruit and retain women in sales. We talk about culture and mindset and how she feels about International Women's Day. My next guest is the trailblazer in advocating for women in sales. She's released her latest book, She Sells. She has a passion for more women in B2B sales and leadership and is working towards that aim. She leads Women's Sales Pros, which launched in 2015, and the She Sells Summit and podcast. Laurie Richardson is a revenue growth sales advisor, author, and data interpreter, and an all-round inspiring woman. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Laurie Richardson.
Hey Janice, how are you?
I'm good. We have so much we want to cover. It's International Women's Day on the 8th of March, just in a couple of days. And I wanted to get Laurie on because she's got this excellent book She Sells, and there's so much that's changing that I wanted to talk to Laurie about. So let me delve in first of all to set the context here, Laurie. So before we talk about International Women's Day and She Sells, I'd like to talk about the number of women in sales in the workforce post-COVID that have left for whatever reason. And I feel, and I'm sure you do too, is a hidden endemic that we're not talking enough about. And
Right.
Mary Shea has brought this to the fore in that I presented with her at the Women's Sales Summit in Napa last September. And the research that came out was that women in sales were facing more obstacles. And her research indicated that they were experiencing a 10% decline of women in B2B sales over the previous 2 years, so over COVID. But more recently, and I know you've seen this research from Tech Tracker Layoff, is that they've found that women present 39% of the overall workforce, but they represent 64% of those laid off since September. So I'm really interested in your views here. Yeah, I mean, it's just accelerating. So what do you feel about this? What's your view?
Yeah, I am confused by everything. I like accurate data. I like to share facts that we know are to be true. And Mary's research was the first research that I heard that I trusted. And recently, I'm not familiar with Tech Tracker, but we definitely know of so many. I know of so many women who were leaders, sales leaders that we lost, that are looking to get back into different roles. And we lost a lot of newer women and also more senior women. So I'm really not sure. And I have talked to some contacts I have at LinkedIn because LinkedIn did a study. It was back in, I think it was 2014, when they went through, they had interns and have humans looking through profiles, and they had a women and men ratio for sales. And I'm hoping they'll do something again. I have no guarantees. I have no weight to pull there, but I'm hopeful that someone will do it exactly as another company that has done studies in the past. So I'm hoping, because we really need to know what's going on. And there's no doubt that the stories that I hear anecdotally certainly indicate that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this brings us around beautifully to your book because She Sells is excellent in the way you thank you, Laurie, because you've made it easy for all of us. In that you've collated all of the research and theories, as you say, you like accurate data. And
Yeah.
it really helps to set out the steps and strategies to make it easy for leaders and sales managers, campaigners, and people just interested to know the facts, what's happening in this area. So, the way that your book, She Sells, really builds the foundations from the research and goes on to talk about why and how to attract, how to hire, how to onboard, how to retain, how to promote great women into the sales profession. And then the success culture that must be conducive to making these efforts self-sustainable. So it's fantastic in that it kind of completes full circle. So tell me why you saw a need for this book.
Well, thank you for those nice words. I appreciate them. I saw a need because these are the questions I was asked over and over since 2015. And I had planned to put it out sooner. I think now is a good time, though, because of all that's going on around us with the economy and with layoffs and things. And I don't want people to forget that this is still important. And even if they have downsized and maybe they're not hiring this minute, they will be hiring. And you can't just put, diversity and inclusion to the side and say, well, we got to survive. We can't deal with this. This is part of survival. And this is part of what a company must be in 2023 going forward, is that we need inclusive teams in all our departments. I just happen to be in the sales lane, and that's what I care about. So I want to help those companies. I wrote the book for the leaders and managers who really want to make a change but have had trouble, rather than the doubters that want more proof. I have no time for them. So this is for the ones that say, oh, we tried, it was really hard. And it can be hard, it can be difficult, but there are also some very simple things people can do to make it easier to attract more people to your company, and then to bring them on and retain them.
And don't you think that this is just good? It's good business. Once people
Yeah.
get it, the things that they're doing are not good business because you bring on more diversity, which, yeah, but it's good for everybody. It's a better culture, but it's more inclusive for everyone. It's more open. People feel free to have the necessary conversations, which is healthier for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree to that, but I also acknowledge that I heard this on American TV the other day, that most white Americans don't have any friends who are not white. So it's an ongoing discussion when people are talking about, well, who do you invite to your company? People, oh, I know this great guy I went to school with. I know this great woman that, was in another role. So we have to widen our horizons personally too. And I think that makes for a more enriching life as well. But that's a bigger, that's kind of a platform issue.
Wow, that's a really interesting observation, really, because if I think about I'm in the UK, and I think about the the history of the UK, which isn't always positive,
Right.
as
Same
we
here.
know. Exactly. But nevertheless, the way that other cultures have integrated that, it's become a real melting pot, that I would imagine, I know I live in London, but I would imagine the percentage is a lot less of white British people not knowing other cultures or not having other cultures of their friends.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see, although there is a shared history
Yes.
in America, how the two cultures have the way that they've evolved evolved almost in different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I know that that's part of the issue, and it's been I've talked about it in different conferences that I've been to, and I've had some really great male allies, white male allies, who have said, you have to think beyond your bubble. You need to expand and just get to know people and reach out and learn more about them. And when we know that we're more alike than we are different as human beings. So I think that's the joy of it all, is that if you widen your horizons, you can meet amazing people and really learn the same lessons and just reinforce what we know about people and being human.
Yeah, yeah. And also when I think about it, if you imagine that kind of like that Europe is in terms of size and number, when we look at Europe and look at the US, it's kind of on the par. But the
Yeah,
difference is that Europe are different languages, different cultures, and all of that,
right.
whereas actually America is, less diverse in
Yes.
cultures and languages and things. So that may be one of the contributing barriers. Um, Although
Yeah,
England is still an island, we still have to travel to get to, Europe, and we're not in Europe
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. And even on a small scale, I know I moved here to Arizona, and it's way more diverse than when I lived north of Boston for 10 years in New Hampshire, which is very, it's just a very non-diverse place. I loved it it was a beautiful place to live, but I did miss just the culture and the connection and just the food and all the different things that happens when you get out of your normal realm. So yeah, it's we need to evolve. It's part of the system, I think, the bureaucracy. Instead of like, well, if women liked sales, there would be more of them here. It's not. It doesn't work that way. And that's what someone said that to me earlier on LinkedIn. They said, well, women are in customer success, so they must feel more comfortable there. And I thought, why does one equal the other?
Mm,
That doesn't make sense.
yeah, yeah. I remember there was at our national sales conference, and I was popping shots at it in terms of the diversity representation on the presenters. And we know this is an old story, isn't it, really? And someone came back saying that yes, this is something that's asked for, more diversity on the stage, but companies are not that diverse, so that's the reason not to do it. And you'd think, this is a major
Right,
organization that's representative of the organization. You should not be laggers in this. You should be
right,
leaders in this. You should be the ones that's representing what the sales industry should be, not reflecting the history of what it was.
right. And even if they do, most conferences will say, well, the sponsors can pick whoever they want. They're paying the money, they can put on. And I say, no, why don't you stand up and say, we need a diverse panel. We need, this whole event needs to be interesting and reflect who our attendees are. I don't know I don't get the problem in that.
No, I don't. And then it was interesting. They said yes, our uh, the attendees are asking for this.
Whoa, there you go.
Yeah,
And this
exactly.
happens that happens with buyers too, Janice.
Yeah.
There are companies that will pass on a vendor because they didn't think that they were inclusive enough. And I've heard of that multiple times. So that is a changing fact, and it's because our buyers are younger now and they are more open and they want to see this. So it's time. It's time for people to get
Yeah.
this all figured out.
Absolutely. In fact, interestingly, the outreach research said that the buyers value diversity by 74%, and 72% would reconsider a company that with their values didn't match their own. So absolutely what you say, the research is backing that up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about Women's Sales Pro. I'm honored to be invited to be a member of Women's Sales Pro. And honestly, it is a sisterhood. It's incredible. I absolutely love it. Why do you think that there is still a need for this separate group
Yeah.
of women sales pros?
Yeah, it's funny. I was asked that by a white male CEO a few years back. He said, why do you need to call it women's sales pros? Why can't you just call it like awesome sales group or something?" And I said, because women are underrepresented at every level in most industries, not all, but most, and particularly in tech and SaaS, which is where their company was. And until that point, where half of the sellers are women and a good chunk are leaders, I'm going to keep lobbying for that. So I will stop, but not until I see more change happen. And in the recent, as we're talking, we're losing women and not gaining women. So we have a lot of work to do to make up for that. And I believe that the group that you're in of the sales experts, you're all role models to the women that are coming up, whether you want to be or not. And I always say that because a lot of us just want to be recognized for our own expertise, and we're not here to be role models necessarily, but it as it turns out, that's what happens because women need to see more of us on a main stage and on a big important podcast and at important events, so that they understand that this is a field that women can lead in and not just be allowed to participate in. And that's what I feel about getting more women on the main stage, and just getting us out there writing books and doing podcasts and all those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting what you say, you're a role model whether you want to be or not. And I
Yeah,
think we're all running our own business. And just
yeah,
outside of that, you're a role model because we're in the minority until
yeah,
we become not that necessarily the majority, but have an equal footing, you're always going to be a role model. So you might as well just embrace it.
yeah. I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. It's not a bad thing, and it's not um overly aspirational. I mean, it is what it is. When you've accomplished something somebody else wants to do. I mean, I picked Tony Robbins as my mentor when I was in my early 20s. He was just starting out, and he used to do those infomercials on television in the evening, and I'm sure that that's where I first saw him. But he would say, and I'm sure he still does, that success leaves clues. So if you find people that are successful, do what they're doing, model their behavior, and it's very possible that you can get the same results.
I saw something, Oprah Winfrey, and she was asked, what's the common denominator of the most successful people? And it was interesting what she said is because they know their goal. The majority of us don't really know what we're aiming for, what our ultimate goal is, what our passion is, and what our purpose is. So it means that you will follow the crowd, you'll go in this direction, you'll waste a lot of your energy because it doesn't really have a focus. So the thing that makes you most successful is just understanding what you're here to do, and
Yeah.
step by step every decision you make is taking you a step closer towards that, and that's what creates the success. It isn't that they're rocket scientists, they're more intelligent than it. And I thought that was really interesting, really
Yeah,
quite interesting.
that is it. I would agree. It's about focus and staying the course, even when other people try to get you to veer off. Right?
Yeah,
It's knowing where you're headed and doing that.
and you're going to bear off if you're not really committed to that goal. Yeah.
Right.
I did a TEDx talk, and in it I talked about getting advice from other people. They say, "Oh, you know, you're not intelligent enough to do this," or "You're," you know, I literally was told that when I was 15. And
Wow.
you know, I was, you know, you can't do this. Even your parents, all the, you know, people are around to protect you. But if you think about it, a lot of their experience is based on their history and their experience, which
Yeah.
isn't yours, and it's historical. And you know, if you're trying to aim for something in the future, it perhaps hasn't been, that step hasn't been built yet. So how can someone give you advice to say it's the wrong direction, it's the wrong step, or you can't
Yeah.
do it, or you won't do it? And so basically you shouldn't listen to anyone's advice.
I,
You know, you can choose or refuse it or reconsider it, but make
yeah.
it your own. You know, it's your own life, your own steps.
I think a lot of people are just small minded. They're not big. I've always been attracted to big picture thinkers. And the person that says, no, no, that won't work. We try. I mean, I'll say that myself sometimes. So don't get me wrong. I haven't mastered it. However, I like the bigger picture people that'll be like, how would that work? What if we did try that? It didn't work before, but maybe now is the time. And I just love the idea of evolution and of new things happening. So that's why I'm excited in business and in sales for the future. I'm not getting tired or worn down. I'm excited about artificial intelligence, and I'm excited about maybe people can get coached better that way in between working with a human. And I can't wait to see how that might play out. And I'm really excited and looking for case studies on that. So that's what keeps me going. It's the idea of learning and being able to grow, that growth mindset. That's definitely my book.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely love that. I love that. Okay, so let's talk about International Women's Day.
Yeah.
Embrace equality. And, you know, equality recognizing that, you know, we're all different and we have different circumstances. And so it advocates that exact resources and opportunities are needed to reach an equal goal because we are all unequal. So I don't know. How do you feel about International Women's Day? If it's something that we should continue to pursue, and how do you feel about their current um, um, banner of embracing equality?
Yeah. I have mixed feelings. I know in October we talk about Women in Sales Month, and people say, well, it shouldn't be a month, it should be all the time. So, should it be a day? It's Black History Month right now. I mean, part of me feels like, and it might be the older part of me, that any attention is good, and I'm going to take whatever I can to help amplify. And if it gets people to suddenly think about something, or to do a different kind of a post on LinkedIn, or to make some donations, that's great. It doesn't solve issues, but it does raise visibility. So from that standpoint, I think it's good. What's funny about March is that somehow it became Women's History Month too. And I don't know if that's because people felt guilty that there was only one day for women, so they expanded it to a month. But I also found that it always seemed more international to me. Like 10 years ago, International Women's Day wasn't very big in the US, but it was around the world. It was in the UK. And I think that's something that I see now, is that it's more accepted and talked about here. But yeah, a single day doesn't do anything. We need it to be part of who we are, and a part of business, and a part of the sales profession.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. Okay, I'd like to talk about, bring it back to our area of expertise and focus around sales and optimizing salespeople and sales operations.
Yeah.
Tell me more about scorecard evaluation.
Yeah, so I was a reactive trainer for many years. And if you would call and say, oh, I have this company, scale your sales, and we need a LinkedIn session, or people need to be better at closing. can you come and teach us something? And I would do it and I'd customize materials. People would seem to like it. I'd get good feedback. But later I would say, well, Janice, so how much did the salespeople improve? And the people would say, well, I have no idea because, nobody measures that kind of stuff. And the longer I did it, the less enthusiastic I was about what I was doing. And it became that I didn't really care that it was good money, because people will pay well for training, but I didn't have the confidence, their confidence that they would even do it again with me because they didn't necessarily get the value. So I looked around and, I looked for processes and tools and ways to put something together where we could actually measure results. So now when people engage with us, we first of all will do an evaluation to see where everybody's at. And I know you believe in this too, because you do the same thing. I won't usually work with a company unless they do that, because unless they know which of their people are coachable and which of their reps are trainable and which of the managers will actually uh, use accountability in their coaching and actually coach their reps. I don't want to do training with those companies because it's not going to work. It's not going to stick, and that's why our training industry, the sales training industry, has a bad name because so much of it, there's so much money spent, and so little of it sticks.
I would absolutely agree with you. I didn't necessarily do traditional sales training, but I was always, and I still am, astounded by the fact that in the last 30 years, only 50% of salespeople hit quota. And actually, I think Salesforce did some research, and it's growing. It's like only 35% now. And you think, well,
Yeah,
so much waste. And I talk a lot
yeah,
about finding the gaps and closing the gaps. There's so much waste in the sales industry. We keep doing the same things over and over again and not measuring any success
yeah.
to it. Seems crazy, and it didn't really sit well with me either. I thought there's got to be a better way to do this. And although I talk about customers and the outcome of your customers, you've still got to have an efficient sales force if I'm going to get them to deliver on customers' outcomes. If there's real
Right,
gaps in their capabilities, then it doesn't matter what I do at the strategic level and the operational level, your
right,
sales force are not up to the task. So it just seems
right.
you have to do that first. You have to
Yeah,
work on closing those gaps first. So I, love the evaluation tool. The other aspect that I wanted to talk to you about the evaluation tool, and it isn't, it, it feels to me from a recruitment point of view, and we're talking about getting more diversity into sales, that many of the recruiters go to the same place over and over again, or
yeah,
the manager likes somebody that looks like them. From a
yeah,
recruitment point of view, it seems to me that this is a great tool that you could widen the net,
yeah.
because the tool will tell you who has the highest willingness to sell, or who
Right,
has natural sales DNA, who is potentially going to be more successful regardless of their background. So
right. You won't even know their gender. Yeah,
no, no,
exactly.
you don't. It helps you to bring in more diversity into the workforce, and
Yeah.
that's the other aspect I really loved
Yeah,
about.
we've seen that happen at companies
Yeah,
where they suddenly had more a broader range of candidates.
yeah, because you haven't got the sales manager or the recruiter thinking that they don't look like a salesperson, they don't look
Right,
successful, and they block the way. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
So, what tried and tested strategy would you offer listeners to enable them to scale their sales? And I know that you've got so many. So, which one strategy would you like to offer us listeners?
To accomplish what?
Scale their sales.
To scale their sales. I think the foundational element is mindset. I really do. And so find ways to help motivation doesn't last, inspiration doesn't last. You have to keep going back and finding new reasons why you're excited, and why if you're a leader, the team won't just propel on their own. They need excitement and enthusiasm, and so do our buyers. We need to get back to them. Our existing customers, don't take them for granted. So go back and check on them, for even though you're not needing to renew something, or even when someone loses a job, that's the time to reach out to them, not when they land the next job and you want them to be a new customer again. So it's a matter of being thoughtful, and also thinking about yourself and what you need. I always did professional development, even when my company wouldn't pay for it. So, as a single parent in my early 20s, I would pay for things like I went through the Dale Carnegie program so I could initially be a better speaker. That was kind of the thing to do way back when, back in the day. And Toastmasters, which is worldwide, and just things to get my brain to fire up, and studying things like why people buy, and the psychology of buying, and about taking risks, and all those things can be learned. And so being a student of sales, as well as really focusing on mindset, that's my foundation for success.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so talking about foundation for success, I'm going to put you on a desert island on your own. So I'd like to know what one thing you would take with you.
Well, it's kind of cheating when I give my answer, because I would take my backpack. Because my backpack, when I go on the road, it has all the things I need other than my clothes, which are in my suitcase. So I figure I can figure out the clothes situation, but as long as I have my laptop, of course, I'm going to have Wi-Fi. And if I can communicate with the rest of the world, I'm going to be okay for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two.
All right. Well, you've got it. I'll allow you. That's a big cheat, but you did forewarn me. You can have the backpack.
That's right.
You can walk around naked, but you've got your computer.
I need my backpack. That's right.
Laurie, how can listeners get hold of you?
Oh, they should reach out on LinkedIn. Be sure, if we're connecting, say that you heard the podcast. And I get a lot of requests and I don't accept everything. So say that, make this connection. And also through anything at Score More Sales, or at Women's Sales Pros on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I'm all over the place.
Good to see. Well, thank you, Laurie. Thank you for She Sells. It's one of those books that you keep picking up, because there's so much. It's such a depth of knowledge, and based on great research. So I really appreciate you putting that out there. And I appreciate you generally, because you're an incredible connector and such a wonderful woman. So thank you so much for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Laurie Richards.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Janice. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.